Greetings and welcome, hello, to the first webinar of the 2020-2021 school year. My name is Don Taylor, and this webinar this year is changing a little bit. We're now called Conversations, and we're integrated into the Middle Grades Collaborative. So if you tuned into PLP Pathways over the last 5 seasons, you know that we have some great conversations about education and about collaborative learning and all those things that make middle level education and Act 77 great to have in our buildings, in our learning communities. We're always joined by contributors. Today we have some guests, and I'd like, first of all, our regular contributors, Lindsey and Kevin, to introduce themselves. And again, we'll ask our guests to introduce themselves, and then we'll get underway. And thanks everybody for joining us. Lindsey?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lindsey Halman, and I'm the Executive Director for Up for Learning.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Pioli-Hunt. I am a 5'8" generalist on Swift House at Williston Central School.
And then Brooks, Sarah, and Heather, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Brooks Sturdivant, and I teach 7th grade at Missisquoi Valley Union Middle School, and I attended the MGI this past summer.
Sarah?
My name is Sarah Popowitz, and I am a program director at Up for Learning now, formerly a sustainability science program director.
Awesome, thank you. Heather?
Hi, I'm Heather Baker Morris. I'm the facilitator of student pathways at Hartford Middle School in Hartford, Vermont. I've taught middle school for 10 years and then switched into this role this year.
Awesome, thanks for joining us. And Susan?
Hi everybody, I'm Susan Hennessey. I work for the Tarrant Institute for Innovative Education.
Awesome, well again, thank you so much everybody for joining us. Again, this is our first webinar of the 2020-2021 school year. And this year is obviously very different from the past. We're actually having this webinar a little bit earlier in September, just to have teachers and participants reflect on their experience in the pandemic. And sort of our first go-round, or the first question we have for folks is, what format are you in your local school, and how's that going? And if you're a community provider or someone, Lindsey and Sarah, who work for Up for Learning, you know, how are you adapting your practice and your programs right now to the pandemic? And we'll start with Kevin, and then we'll go to Heather, and then Susan and Brooks, and then Sarah and Lindsey, if that's okay. Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so I can speak for Swift House. Williston Central School, we have 4 upper level teams, so 5'8", and it's split up a little bit this time, and 3-4 teams. So on Swift House, our specific model, we're hybrid. So we have a group 1, group 2. So half of our kids, we split them up because we're a 5'8" team. So we split our course pretty much in half, and we also had to follow the alphabetical splitting as best that we could. So I have the group 1 students on Monday, Tuesday. We're all out of the building on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, Friday, I'm remote with our group 1 students. So I kind of have those 40 to 42 kids Monday, Tuesday, and then the same kids remotely on Thursday, Friday. The really different thing that we're doing, because we had to make these pandemic core groups now with our different hybrid core groups. So on Wednesdays when we're all remote, we have what we call them our OG core groups, so our original core groups, as if we were in person, because again, some of my original core students I had, especially my rising 7th and 8th graders, are in group 2 just based on where they were placed alphabetically. So it's our chance to build those relationships, still keep up our relationships with them. We do all of our PLP work on Wednesdays. We do our mentor-mentee work on Wednesdays. And we also have lit groups on Wednesdays just because we can have a little more flexibility around groupings that day. So it's been really interesting keeping up with, 3 different schedules going on at once, and the kids are crushing it and we're catching up to them. So it's going all right so far.
Awesome, thank you. Heather, do you want to fill us in on your situation in Hartford?
Sure, so we're also in a hybrid model. Hi, Meg. I student topper, Meg, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Hi, Meg, how are you? Hi.
Heather Baker. Oh my gosh, from MGI Gear Up, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Lindsay.
Oh boy, reconnecting. Love it. And we have Sam
Hi,
Nelson
guys.
joined us too, and Meg O'Donnell. This is great. Heather,
So
what's your
fun.
situation?
Okay, so Hartford is doing a hybrid model also, but we're just going every other day. So there's a blue group, red group. And we do not have that sweet Wednesday off like a lot of school districts do. We tried to get it, but they wouldn't go for it. So we're every other day, and kids are in pods of 8 to 10 people, and teachers are teaching all content. So the content teams are developing units that are then shared with the rest of the school, and teachers facilitate within their pod. And teachers have a partner teacher that relieve them for like 45 minutes a day for a prep period.
Awesome. Thank you. And I had Brooks next. Brooks, do you want to tell us your situation at Missisquoi?
Sure. We're a hybrid as well. So we have a blue group and then a white group, and they come in for 2 in-person days, and then they have remote days. And then yesterday we had our first virtual day with all the kids, and a couple of technical issues, but I think as we get going into it, we'll refine those processes. But overall, it's gone well so far, and we have small classes. Like I think my biggest class on one day is like 9 kids. So
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, we're a small school, sort of, but
yeah,
when you split them up, it makes it a little smaller, definitely.
Sarah and Lindsay, do you want to talk about how your programs are adapting to the current situation?
Sarah, would you like me to go first?
Sure.
Yeah, so at Up for Learning, just for context, we work with youth adult teams from across the state and then outside of the state as well in a variety of different programs and projects. And we have been working really closely with teams since last March when the pandemic first shut down schools, and we found it pretty quick. We were able to be pretty quick in figuring out how to do this work on a virtual platform, because the work that we do can transcend whether you're in person or virtually, as long as you have youth and adults doing the work together. And so we have, just like I said, we're working with lots of different schools right now across the state in a variety of programs. So I can give kind of the big picture piece. And we're finding that, although being in person and that human connection relationship is obviously ideal, we're finding that this can break down some of the equity barriers too for access to our work. And we're finding that more schools, more students, more youth, more family members have access to being part of this work because of the nature of doing this work remotely. And so the engagement level has been really high, and we've been just trying to figure out the best way to keep folks engaged and in dialogue with one another. And we are moving along here. Sarah, you want to talk about specifics a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, everything you just said is the backbone of what we're experiencing. And coming off of, I was a classroom teacher up until June. And so I experienced this spring as the classroom teacher. And so I understand that feeling. And then going back into it now with a little more time and planning, even though things are shifting on a daily basis. And so I think what we're experiencing now is, when it comes to specific programs, we're seeing that the need is so critical. The availability of students, youth and adults wanting to work together, wanting to jump in on this work. The time is now. And even though it seems like a little bit of a crazy time, it's actually a really rich time to take on that work. And because of the virtual technical space, specifically even thinking like with Cultivating Pathways, which will be launching on Monday, we're able to actually include more schools, more youth, more adults in these crazy exciting partnerships that wouldn't have happened before. And I cannot wait to see the look on some of the participants' face when they see and get to speak with and engage with students that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. And so I think the opportunities for that are becoming more and more obvious as people get less and less afraid of the technology piece. It's where we're at, it's how we're communicating, and I'm hoping that it's going to open up more doors than close barriers with specific programming.
And Don, if I could just add one more thing, I was thinking because Brooks is on this call, and it reminded me that we're working on a project with MVU. This has been, we also think that this is like a great opportunity to think about how can we collect feedback from youth, families, staff, everyone around the response to reopening and have a continuous feedback loop. And I'm just thinking about the work that we're doing with Brooks, your school, and it's about to launch. It's called the MV Unity Response Team. And the work that they are designing is to think about how can we be having a continuous feedback loop about what's happening right now, and then use that to make changes in this moment, but then hold on to those really, woohoo, yeah. And then use it to make, hold on to as that, what are the lessons that we're learning through this pandemic around learning that we want to take with us when the schools reopen, and we're out of the pandemic. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this is great to have so many folks on the call. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to participate. So I have Susan and Sam and Meg, and then I'll conclude. My situation's a little bit different. But Susan, do you want to tell us how Tarrant is adapting?
Sure. With my colleagues, we work with a number of schools around the state, so it's really different in terms of their remote, structure, their hybrid, their face-to-face, their schedules. One thing that seems to be consistent is a number of schools are trying to plan for remote learning challenges coming forward, right? So what does it look like now to build routines and structures to get students to be thinking about evidence gathering, sharing their learning, not just knowing how to use the technology, but how to be able to share evidence of learning and speak and reflect to that and set goals before we all have to sort of either ultimately shift or not. So those remote plans, I think, have been helpful, and really, again, that piece of like the agency and the ownership for students to know how to gather their thinking and their learning, whether it's a PLP, a portfolio, a seesaw kind of situation, just trying to get kids to start to think about identity and that kind of work, but those routine building.
Thank you very much. Sam Nelson, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us your situation?
Happy to. Nice to see y'all. A lot of fun, familiar faces here. Sam Nelson, I normally teach middle school humanities at Shelburne Community School in the Champlain Valley School District. Also in kind of an unusual position this year, our district had put out feedback to district families asking if they would be interested in a fully remote option this year. We had an overwhelmingly large amount of families opt in for that. So they ended up pulling teachers from schools across our district to kind of start almost like our own school from scratch called the Virtual Learning Academy. So we're serving K through 8 students. I'm teaching 5th through 8th grade, so middle level humanities. I got about 130 kids. We're using the advisory model. We're trying to do a lot of the things that, simulate what the teaming model presents in an in-person or even a hybrid model. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting year. And probably two of the most interesting things that have come with this are one, the set of unexpected challenges and benefits that come from being fully remote, because I know that living in the hybrid world has been really squishy and messy. And so there's been a lot of stability that's gone with remote, but also all of those remote learning challenges that we tinkered with this spring are still there. And then number two is just seeing how darn heterogeneous this group is not. Rather, it's a lot of the same socioeconomic status. Look at it across like socioeconomic status, race, a lot of the pieces that bring groups together to make for like a nice heterogeneous mix in a public school setting. This is looking a lot more homogenous. So we're still kind of tinkering with how to grapple with that. So yeah, lot I could say, but let me just stop there.
Thank you very much. Meg?
All right. Hi, you guys. So nice to see you all. I'm Meg O'Donnell. I teach 7-8 humanities on the red team at Shelburne Community School. And we are a hybrid model. So we are 2 days in. So we have we call it A groups are in on A days, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesdays are our C days, and Thursday, Friday, our B group is in. And sort of the interesting thing right now is this rotation basis. So in order to shrink the field, something that we heard loud and clear from the kids in the spring was too many classes to try to juggle all 4 content areas. So on our team, we're doing a humanities and science rotation for 3 weeks, and then a humanities and math rotation for 3 weeks. And, we're trying to figure, and so the other interesting thing is we have 4 classrooms in our pod, and so 2 teachers are there teaching to 2 groups in 2 different classrooms. So it's like this ridiculous revolving door that we're like, oh, it's comedy. But it is, so it's just interesting. It's exhausting and challenging, and so good to see the kids. It's so good to be in person with them and invigorating, and they are incredibly patient and so resilient. And today was my first day with them in full remote. Yesterday was just sort of a check-in and see how everyone's doing. And so today was my first day, and we had 80-minute classes, and it went so fast. And I was shocked at how little we could get done, and how much it was just an important reminder about all of what we learned last spring and all we still continue to need to learn about.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, Todd.
So I'm in a unique situation where I'm face-to-face 5 days a week. And I'm, so Montpelier, they did a survey of the community, and more than 80% of the families wanted school to be in person. And so I have a pod partner, and we have 23 students, and I'm teaching in the cafeteria. And it's actually better than I thought it would be. And it's just, it's great to be in front of kids again, and it's great to see them. And I think that the big difference for me is being able to adjust your game plan like on the fly, so that when you see that something, maybe a kid doesn't understand something, or the lesson didn't go over well, you can make an adjustment right there, and kind of there's a continuity and a flow to it, which I appreciate. I also think the kids really appreciate the opportunity to be back with each other. I think that's we're seeing that and hearing that. But I also think there's challenges when kids are supposed to be social distanced. You lose the opportunity for small group collaboration. It's difficult to plan in a way that's maybe innovative, where you would have jigsaw reading, perhaps. That's not happening now. It's those little things that you used to be able to do with ease to increase the interaction between kids that are missing somewhat. And somebody made a comment that was very interesting. They talked about what we learned in remote, kind of bringing that into the classroom maybe, and the things that in the classroom, we're trying to bring that into our remote learning environment, and how do we go about doing that. And the other piece I think that Susan mentioned is developing these routines and ideas and structures quickly and effectively, so that if we do have to go remote, that we don't have to spend time in building that structure, that it already exists, and that kids can seamlessly transition. And so I think that's a piece of it as well. So I guess this is our first full week of teaching, and we have an abbreviated schedule. So we start at 8 o'clock and we have a staggered arrival where kids who are on buses come in, and then we've had to structure that, and then we have a power up breakfast, and then we have content, and then they do have asynchronous specials for about 40 minutes in the morning, a second content period, lunch, recess, and then there's a big focus on social emotional learning. At the end of the day, we have that, and we also have homeroom, so we're able to build relationships in that way. And we're trying to build those as fast as possible in case we do go to a remote setting. So that's been interesting, and it's also interesting seeing and hearing about the hybrid models, and as Sam was talking about, the fully remote models too. And again, I really appreciate everybody's input. I guess my next question to folks is, how do you what strategies are you using to build relationships? And I know Sarah talked about something, Sarah and Lindsey, about how much opportunity there is right now to bridge some gap, to bring kids together who might not have been brought together before. And so what are some strategies that people are using to kind of build relationships or to open up those opportunities? And, I think, I'm sorry, I just want to kind of call out an order, if that's okay, so that, there's none of that. Who's next? So why don't we'll start with Susan, and then Brooks, Kevin, and Heather, and then Sarah and Lindsey. I'm putting you together, if that's okay, organizationally. And then Meg, and then Sam. I think that's everybody, right? Okay. So again, the question just is, what strategies are you using to build relationships and opportunities and maybe resources? And Susan, we'll start with you.
So just one quick one for those of you who are doing the A group, B group, white group, blue group, like how to cross engage them so that they feel like they're a full community. And so one thing we've been playing around with is the idea that you have desk buddies. And so, if you've left on Monday to go home, that there's been something left, whether it's an exchange journal or a little note, or somebody's drawn something as a sticky. So the kids are working together to try to figure out how to do that safely, right? But at the same time, you show up and you're like, your desk buddy has left you something. And so it keeps a conversation going, small, but at least a way to build community.
Thank you. Brooks.
So a couple of things, like logistically, normally kids would go to our theater in the morning and just hang out for half an hour, but instead they're coming to our rooms. So I've been really, kind of purposely just trying to go around, talk to kids, find out their interests and their hobbies. I did a flip grid yesterday with kids. So they had to make little videos about themselves. And then they're also having to have lunch with us in the classroom. So just, using those opportunities just to talk to kids. And then we're also doing an advisory with our homerooms using stuff from developmental designs. I don't know if people are familiar with that program. We had a training this summer before MGI, and we had like DD2. So we've been doing that with kids in our homeroom. And it's a little harder with the mask and everything. You can't see all their emotions, but we're doing things like silent greetings and different, like ridiculous kind of statements and stuff. So it's, a little bit of everything, and just kind of being who you are as a person, just to talk to kids and, find out how, their days are going and what they're thinking of remote learning. So, or what they thought of it, I guess. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Kevin?
Yeah, with us, a big thing that we lost is we typically on the second week of school do our big camp out. So we go to Grand Isle overnight, and that's like our big, come together as a team. You leave that feeling like we're all one cohesive group. So we've been trying to play around with ideas for how we can get that feeling back. Just like on the preloading it, similar to Brooks, we used a flip grid model. So we had our returning students create flip grids welcoming our new fifth graders. So they sent that out to new families just to kind of get that semblance of here's who we are as a community, as a team. Our Hopes and Dreams conferences went really well this year. We met outside so we could be face to face and just build those relationships with our new families and new students coming in. Think about what Susan said, that cross piece. Our kids actually are, like, we consider them a whole pod. So our kids do move from class to class within Swift House. We can't do like the leftover, like the desk buddies, but what we decided to do was, our lit groups are all online, so we can split them up with their different group members from the other group. So they're able to see their other classmates within lit groups, which has been, we only had one class so far, but I heard good feedback from especially our older students, like, oh, it's so good to see so-and-so again. And even though I can't see them in person, The advisory model has been working great for us, and that's something that's just kind of been a backbone of our team. And then in terms of the student help, like building relationships with our new students, this is one thing that I wish we had done a little bit more of, but we have a mentor-mentee set up, so our new students coming in get paired with a 7th or 8th grade mentor, and our initial plan was on Wednesdays to use Zoom and do breakout rooms to have that specific mentor-mentee check-in, just to build those relationships. And we started noticing that, we had the staggered arrival when they come in, and it's such a great opportunity for our older students or their mentors to check in with their mentees and have those conversations. But we didn't do a good job structuring that on our end to start. So that's one thing, in hindsight, we kind of missed an opportunity there. So we're just really trying to keep that going. And we've done activities like mentor-mentee interviews, where we actually put small groups together and make sure we had the mentors and mentees together with 2 or 3 extra kids, and we gave them like this interview sheet, so everybody sat outside with their masks on, so you could be a little closer together, and just kind of getting to know you activities like that. And like Brooks was saying, just those having lunch with kids has been awesome. It's seeing that on the schedule. I think I haven't heard anybody say, "Oh, I have to eat lunch with my kids." It's just been a really cool opportunity to hang out with them and just, like, as Brooks said, bounce around and get to know the new kids and just reconnect with your former students. Just that kind of low-key downtime has been huge.
Thank you very much. Heather?
So our students, like I said, are in pods with one teacher for basically the entire day. So that model lends itself pretty nicely to relationship building because they're together all the time. So for a lot of students, or some students, I should say, if you are with them for 2 days straight, you feel like you've known them for a year. And I think that's becoming apparent across our school in good ways and not so good ways. We're doing a lot of outside walk and talk. So the pods are encouraged to take at least one morning break and one afternoon break, so that kids can get a mask break and just walk around the campus and buddy up and try to talk to somebody from their group. And we're also eating lunch with our students outside. So that gives them a chance to sometimes at least see and talk from a distance to some kids from other pods. But I appreciate some of those cross-pod and cross-day connections, because I think that's where kids are feeling a little bit brokenhearted by, like, oh, I'm on a blue day and my bestie's on a red day. And so I think I'll bring some of those back to our teachers. It's a good idea.
All right. Thank you very much. Lindsey and Sarah?
Sarah, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like I will echo a lot of what's just been said as far as my work with some of our schools, specifically within our P4 advisory program right now. Some things are coming to light that it just didn't dawn on me before, that some of these pods are so remotely small, like groups of 8, and they're with each other all day long, and then they get to advisory, and it's like they've rotated through teachers because they were virtual. And so every teacher did kind of like the same icebreaker, get to know you. And then they went to math and it was the same icebreaker, get to know you, or something like that. And then they got to advisory by the end of the day and they were just like, oh my God. And so after 2 or 3 days of that within the same group of 8, they were like, we're done. We don't want to do advisory anymore. And so that burnout is real. And I think that it was by no means planned that way, but the teachers were all working in isolation and didn't realize that was the experience from the student perspective. That was just one school who happens to be totally remote. But I am seeing a little bit of overflow in a lot of the schools that we're working with the same idea. Of students feeling maybe really connected to their pod and their one teacher, but really losing connection of the big picture of the school community. And I feel like that is just such an important thread that really cannot be overlooked right now. We really have to take this opportunity more than ever, even just given our social climate, to make sure that we are not losing sight of the strength of the larger community. And so one of the things that I'm going to work on this week is thinking about how to help teachers and advisories connect in creative ways so that they're feeling more of the bigger picture, because they can do it virtually. And in full transparency, I am the mom of a 7th grader in an 8-person hub that one of the students tested positive. And so we've been in quarantine. We just got our test back today, which is negative. Yay. So everyone so I get it. The pods are working. It's all good. However, some of the social emotional pieces from that we're seeing pieces we haven't seen yet before and need to be addressed and worked through. And I'm hoping that that's where, Up for Learning and this is what we have the energy and resources to do to help teachers right now manage that. Lindsay, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Meg and then Sam.
Yeah. So one of the byproducts of unfortunately of Sam having to go remote was we ended up trying to find a way to bridge the red and the yellow team at our school, and so there are times where we're building this idea of an orange team, where we've created this year-long theme that we're going to work with as a whole 7-8. And so what our schedule has allowed us as well is we have common break time and common lunch with the yellow team. And that has just allowed us, as long as kids are staying, with masks on or off outside 6 feet apart, whatever those layers are that for safety, it's just been so refreshing to get a sense of a 7-8 community as opposed to just, we're doing everything we can to keep them safe, but just building that time in their day for them to get outside, to get them to see one another, and for us as teachers just to find ways to collaborate. There's been a few other smaller things just on our team that we've been trying to do in terms of building some norms so that we can, again, pivot quickly to remote. Like, what do we need in our class to be able to establish a community? What do you need when you're in person and we're 9 in a classroom? And what do you need when you're remote and 20 in a class? So those are some things that we've been trying to pull together. I found this poem on Facing History called Brave Spaces, and I just loved it. I put it in our agenda, but it talks, there's so much emphasis on safe spaces that we're trying to uphold and amplify brave spaces and what that means in terms of taking risks and sharing what it means to be vulnerable at a time like this. When you have to unmute your camera so that you can be seen and you're not just an icon. And so there's some all good stuff continuing to work on, but that's it.
Thank you. Sam?
Right. Just taking notes so I can organize my thoughts. Relationship building in a fully remote world. One thing that's clear is learning facts about other people does not equate to relationships, but it does make for connection points. So what I've been hammering on with my advisory, and it's been effective, is having students build either about me slides and collages, and then also using Google Forms to just kind of get quiz questions from them, putting them in a Kahoot, and then we play that Kahoot weekly. So not only do we cycle through those same questions, but we add more every week. The kids are loving it, and it's like a trivia-based way to learn facts about each other. So not relationship building, but boy, it helps building connections. Also, like another tool we're using both in advisory and in classes are finding time to either have individual conferences or check-ins with students. It's easy in advisory because we know the groups are small. Like a lot of schools did in the spring, we have kind of like open office hours. We call it like a callback time. And students can either use that to request time with us, or sometimes more importantly, we can request those students. So whether it's academic or social or connectivity, whatever, we can chat one-on-one with the students to help support them. And then a tool. So as a school, we all decided to go all in on Zoom versus Google Meets, the big like who is going to win. Zoom has been great because the breakout room feature, I know that that's coming to Meets, but right now we're crushing it with Zoom, and that really helps get students into smaller groups. If you're trying to simulate like collaborative learning in a remote space, it doesn't get much better, I think, than just having small groups with a clear activity and a constructive task so that they're not just sitting there with crickets chirping awkwardly. And I've had feedback from students that has been overwhelmingly positive about using that. And then that piece that you mentioned, Sarah, the challenge of like students feeling like they're just a little star in a constellation, like how do they feel like they really are connected to everyone and part of like that universe? We're doing full team meetings, which is helpful. It's a hot mess when we've got almost 150 people coming together in one Zoom, but it's a great way to build community. We do fun things like trivia questions where you can, put your thoughts in the chat bar. And then some of the, structurally, students aren't just in one pod group all day. You have advisory, you have a group you're in with your core class, which is at grade level, and then we have some mixed grade level groups for like essential arts classes. So they're also seeing different groups of students. And then finally, we're going to be doing personal interest projects, tips for all y'all who don't know. And so that's kind of a Genius Hour style project-based approach to PLP. And with that comes like individualized learning, but then community sharing. And so I think that's going to be another, and all students at BLA in the middle level are going to be doing that. I think that's going to be a win for us.
All right. Well, thank you. As I was listening to folks, I think that in my own situation, one of the things that we did this year that was different is we had pre-school conferences where we met with all the families remotely. And I thought that was really good. And I know that other people have done that before. And this is the first year we did it. And it was great and really awesome to see the families and get to know them and know kids sort of a little bit, at least before they came in. And I would make that sort of part of my permanent practice. A lot of people talked about this unstructured time. I agree. I think that there's a need. I mean, too often I think we say that every moment a kid is in school, they need to be like, it needs to be structured. And so the lunch times have been really good. Another little piece about that is the greetings. You guys have seen that there's like a diagram with all these different greetings you can have, like where you can like tap heels with a kid. And so every morning when kids are coming in and we're taking their temperatures, we kind of have a little greeting. And it's an easy way to build relationships. Hey, how you doing this morning? And you hit them with the thermometer and then you do a little heel kick. All right, let's get after it. It's kind of cool. I like that. And then the other thing, my pod partner is a PE teacher. So I'm teaching humanities and it's been awesome. He's got all these ideas for movement and for SEL activities. And he's just been dynamite. And he's also a veteran teacher. And it's just been really good. And that is definitely something that I would be doing in my classrooms from now on. Like we do this thing called Human Bop It. Have you seen this? Where you put Macklemore instrumental. And I mean, like here we are, like Cash It, whatever, we're doing like Human Bop It. It's fun. And you have to do that when you have the kid in the pod for the whole day. I mean, that's critical. And then some of the things that I think have been deficits or things that I'm struggling with. I don't think we thought about the outdoor classrooms enough. And so there are some schools that have these awesome outdoor classrooms where every kid is sitting on like a stump around a circle. I mean, they're having barbecue. No, they're not doing that, but they're actually, it's awesome outside activities. And we're working on that right now, but that's a huge piece of it, just to be able to get outside and journal or write about what you're seeing or the changing of seasons. The other thing, I think that larger community piece that both Sarah and Sam mentioned, we're trying to put together like a whole school virtual assembly, but just feeling the energy of the whole school in one place. I think we're missing that. And I think kids are missing that too from some of their own activities, like, sporting events or what. There's not that kind of larger group piece. And then the last thing, is that I'm teaching only 7th graders this year. And in the past, I've had 7th and 8th graders. And what a huge difference when you don't have a legacy for your program. In the past, you could turn to 8th graders and say, hey, could you explain to this kid how we do things? And they would take care of it. and they would, oh, this is what we do here. And that sort of legacy program is so powerful, even if it's for 2 years, the 7th and 8th grade. And also I've seen a couple of the kids that I had last year, and some of them have grown like 2 feet tall, and you just kind of miss that. You miss knowing their families and seeing how they've grown, and then also seeing the development over those 2 years, where it's like, holy cow, I remember when you were a 7th grader and now look at you. And that's kind of been hard. That's been hard for me, harder than I thought, actually. I think I went through a period of mourning for the first like 2 weeks of school, and I'm over it now. But man, I miss seeing those kids, who were dialed into the program. That's a big deal. So we have about 20 more minutes. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to have Lindsey and Sarah talk about their cultivating pathways to sustainability and that kickoff. And one of the reasons I think is that we're seeing so many of the social issues that are coming up right now, not obviously the pandemic. There's also been a lot of climate issues and political issues happening. And cultivating pathways to sustainability, I think, is a great opportunity for folks. And Lindsey and Sarah, do you want to talk about that for a little bit? And then I'd like to sort of end, either with some recommendations for folks, or if you have other questions or things that you want maybe the group to answer. But Sarah and Lindsey, do you want to talk about your program that's coming up?
Sure. Do you want me to start, Sarah?
Sure. Actually, can I just make one comment off of what Dawn just said before you start?
Yes.
As soon as you said that, feeling the loss of the connection between the legacy piece, my mind also went to the legacy of the physical space of your school or your program. And so for me, leaving the sustainability program, my program was rooted in our physical space, and the legacy that the students created that was part of our program was the physicalness of being at school and being in the chicken coop and outside and in the greenhouse and in the gardens and doing all of this stuff that is now not available for them. And so as you were saying that, I was like, wow, yeah, I'm mourning the loss of that because I'm not there. I know Kayla's mourning the loss of using that as the teacher. But then in my head, I transitioned it into, but the opportunity of cultivating pathways, hence Lindsey about to start, is looking and broadening our impact on our communities and that connectedness in a different way, right? So we can't have that physical space, but how else can we make that space and that time and that change and have that youth voice, and cultivating pathways is how we can do it. So you can go, Lindsey, and then I'll jump in.
Sure. It looks like we're saying bye to Heather.
Heather, anytime you want to join us again, we would deeply appreciate hearing your experience.
Thank you. This was so awesome. I'm so glad I clicked the link.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Have a great afternoon.
So, yes, thank you for that piece, Sarah. And I'm just thinking about my daughter, who's 9, who at her school, they've really prioritized outdoor learning. They had pre-pandemic prioritized that as, priority for them. And now it's very easy to be in that kind of mindset, to be learning outside throughout the day or going outside. And just the need for us to be able to use our natural environment and our community as a space too. So just was thinking about that as a personal parent connection. But cultivating pathways, we are in our 5th year. The framework for cultivating pathways really came about when in 2015, the United Nations put out their Sustainable Development Goals, and that would be realized by 2030. And at the time, myself, Jen Cirillo at Shelburne Farms, and Kate Tolan at People's Academy said, this is the opportunity for personalized learning, project-based learning, and creating systems-wise change and community change. Because here we have this framework for young people to look at and say, hey, that's important to me, and I want to really dive into that, and I want to find out who in my community can help me learn more about that. So that happened 5 years ago, and lots of things have changed in these 5 years. And Up for Learning and Shelburne Farms are now partners in this initiative as of last year. And our kickoff is on Monday, the 21st, this Monday. It's open to youth and adult teams from across Vermont. And what's so beautiful about this opportunity is that there are so many barriers that have been eliminated. We used to have people arrive at Shelburne Farms and have their mac and cheese lunch and have a great day at the farm. But if you think about that, there's so many barriers for that to happen for many schools throughout our state. And so we have a school that is going to be joining us from Mississippi, a school from Massachusetts, a school from Nepal this year, and then many schools from around Vermont, middle school and high school. And with the partnership between Shelburne Farms and their knowledge and expertise around education for sustainability and our knowledge and expertise around youth adult partnership, we have forged a year-long program where the kickoff's on Monday. Anybody can attend the kickoff if you just want a little juice to get you inspired. But then another piece of it is that there's a year-long youth adult partnership cohort that will be using the participatory action research cycle to really dive into what they identify as a community need and a community project, and might be multiple projects to make change in their community. So we'll be meeting virtually for now, and then hopefully in person / virtually, because we have folks from across the world in a hybrid model throughout the year. And we will help to support teams through that process, Jen and Sarah and I. And we have 5 amazing youth facilitators. 5, is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah. 5.
So, the kickoff, you'll meet those 5 facilitators, and Sarah and Jen and I will be there. And we're just really excited about this opportunity. And we hope that folks will think about how they can join us. It's 10 to 12 on Monday. It's the International Day of Peace. So we felt it was an important day to hold this event, even though we know this will only be the 3rd week of school and there's so many moving parts. And so we hope that it can serve as maybe a place of inspiration, just to hear from other young people and their adult partners from across the state and across the world about how the goals can be a real foundational piece for the learning and the work that occurs this year. Sarah, hop in.
Yeah, no, those are exactly, it's such an invigorating, exciting, dynamic way to look at learning, right? To look at where youth right now there's so much going on in their world right now, and they are feeling it, and they're feeling it hard. And when you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a place for everybody. And so I feel like as a platform in general, as an educator, it is just such a dynamic place to begin conversations about what is important for youth, and how can they feel like they are not only learning, but contributing and acting and making change, and whatever those pieces are that really make them feel like they're engaged, invested, and happy in their learning right now. And I guarantee using that platform, you will find there is something for everyone. And so I think that's, and then hearing from all of these other youth who are also invested and engaged and bring different ideas to the table to spark conversations. You don't get a lot of opportunities like that. And the fact that it's here, and I say in Vermont, it's anywhere. Like for a Nepal group to join us on Monday is just going to be like, our students are going to be so excited. So it's just a really wonderful way to engage right at the beginning of the year, use this as a platform, set some stuff up that could really carry some meaningful work throughout the year.
Thank you very much. Lindsey and Sarah, I think that the global goals, and I know Kevin works with this, and I'm going to actually let him speak to it. And I don't know if Sam or Brooks or other folks work with it too, but as you just said this word, it's a great platform. And I can't agree more that, you start out with the world's largest lesson and you can bite off as much as you want. And I think that it really makes sense, especially with what kids are seeing outside, in their world. And so, Kevin, can I have you just talk a little bit about the project you do with your kids? And then it sounds like Sam may work with it a little bit too. If you can just give a summary of what that looks like.
And Meg was part of our cohort last year.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's going to look differently this year. We are in the brainstorming phase of how we're going to work this. Typically, we front load the school year with the UN SDGs, doing some lessons around that before we even get into curriculum, because it provides context for everything we do. We start with those teaching tolerance, social justice standards, and the UN SDGs, because after that, like, no matter what you do, you're going to find a connection, and it just makes sense to start your school year that way. So that was actually one of my recommendations. I was like, if you haven't explored the world's largest lessons yet, get in there, because they did a great job adapting them to remote learning too, and it's just a wonderful place to shop around. So typically we kind of launch through, and our students essentially, in short, pick their own sustainability groups. We have it as part of our curriculum, and they work in these small groups of 4 to 5, kind of attacking a couple of those global goals and doing something that they're passionate about, with connecting with our community and making a change. It's a lot of hands-on, off-campus stuff, so that's going to look really differently this year. So that's why we're actually really excited to go to the launch on Monday to get some ideas from people, because we're scrambling right now just to figure out, what this is going to look like for us, because that has been the past 3 years such an integral part of who we are as a team, and the kids have loved it too. So we know it's going to be different this year, but we also don't want to just be like, we have to just kind of take this year off from it. So we're trying to be really mindful and tactful about how we approach it, so we keep the traction and do something meaningful without overwhelming both us on the planning side and the kids with just like another big thing that they're doing. So I'm excited for Monday.
Awesome. Meg, do you want to speak to what you do, and then Sam can speak up as well?
Sure. So last year, Wendy had a cohort group that she worked with, who's the other humanities teacher on our team, and they were working with the youth in our school to like talk about the recycling, and I forget the program, Lens. What was it called? Like I forget what it's called. Anyway, they have great.
Try.
What's that?
TROI, try for the environment.
Right. And that was just great. This year, as I mentioned before, we've got this sort of orange year-long theme about how we impact the world and how the world impacts us. And we just started that literally on day 1. And the idea is that from that will come these small groups on our Wednesdays. We're hoping to really kind of harvest Wednesdays, because it's not, the schedule is a little bit more freeing on Wednesdays to be able to leverage small groups. In fact, Don, I was going to look at your green team and just sort of link all of like this idea of impact, and how are we impacted, but how can we impact the world in return? So using the UN Sustainable Goals and checking in with Lindsey. I don't know, Lindsey, if we're going to make it on Monday. That's the bummer. But we are committed.
I'm pushing for it. I'm pushing Wendy.
I know. We'll figure it out. Maybe we can figure it out.
Thank you.
Things have happened.
Meg, can I also, I'm just going to ask you now, is there any way that you could read that Brave Space poem as our closing? Is there
You
any way
bet.
that you could find?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Okay, great. Sam, do you want to talk about your work with the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
Absolutely. I just preemptively dumped a blog post into the chat bar so y'all can check it out. So every year over the past 3 or 4, 2 of the main pillars of whatever humanities curriculum I co-designed with students are social justice and environmental justice. With social justice, we start by breaking down what social identity is, giving them the language tools so they understand how to use social identifiers to pick apart like a current event or whatever. And then with environmental justice, it's the UN Sustainable Development Goals that do the same thing. We break down what they are, students understand the meaning of them, and then they use those as tools to look at environmental issues in and surrounding the community, which is cool. And then it really gets good when we do the intersection of social justice and environmental justice. But yeah, that blog post I dropped just kind of covers some of what that can look like. And specifically, I'm thinking about the power of cultivating pathways to sustainability, because in that blog post, we had the opportunity to partner with a school in urban Philadelphia a few years ago. And so not only have students like investigating, what the UN SDGs look like in their communities, but have two very differently structured communities sharing that experience along the way. And so, yeah, I'm with you, Meg. Like I'm working my butt off to get students connected, because I've already been in contact with Jen. I know that there are slots available for a VLA squad at Cultivating Pathways on Monday. So we're trying to get that word out to get at least a handful of students interested. And what we're figuring out is that going to be kind of almost an elective piece for them through the year, or does that become their personal interest project because it's already a beautiful framework for a PIP and therefore a PLP? So that's kind of what we're toying with as we move forward this year.
All right, awesome, thank you. And then before we close, Susan, I know that you have some programs coming up. Do you want to talk about some of those for teachers who are looking to improve their practice?
We've started to launch this sort of series of webinars, and we use that term webinar loosely because it's much more about workshops. It's coming and engaging with folks who are in the community, teachers in practice, and then being able to actually do something with the work. And so we've run 2 place-based education, partnering with the Shelburne Farms and that whole community, and then we're going to be focusing on sort of assessment practices to increase that kind of feedback loop, and that having students and teachers sort of engage with the data that they can gather and then take next steps together. That's a hope for October, but then we're going to keep launching for the rest of the year these kinds of series. So keep an eye out for that.
And where can folks find that information?
You can follow us at Innovative Ed on Twitter. I'll pop that into the chat, and it's on Instagram as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Meg, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Before you read, that's going to be the closing. I just want to thank everybody so much for taking time to join the conversation. It's just, I love hearing from everybody in their different situations, and it's just really positive and affirming to hear that people are working through the same issues and have the same considerations. And again, thank you very much for participating. We had some new faces on this afternoon, which I really appreciate. And it's just great to see everybody. I think it's so, we talk about how sometimes we feel like we're working in isolation, and even just kind of reconnecting is really hopeful for me. And I appreciate what everybody's doing. So thank you very much. Our next webinar is going to be on October 15th. And one of the things that's unique about this year is that I'm not quite sure exactly what that's I'm sure we'll be talking about remote learning. I'm sure we'll be talking about strategies. Probably going to be talking about equity and how we're reaching out to all families and encouraging, families and how to get teachers and students connected and all those things. So yes, it will be at 3:15 on Thursday, October 15th. And Meg, do you want to close us out here with the poem, Brave Space?
You bet. Can you? Yeah, yes, you bet. So this is on Facing History. If you just look up Brave Space, you'll find it. Together we'll create brave space, because there's no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side.
Awesome. Meg O'Donnell. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you again, Lindsey and Sarah. Good luck with your big day on Monday, and for all those attendees. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe, be healthy, and be well, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye now.